On day 2, we are going to work on multiplying and dividing rationals. We will start by simplifying and stating any restrictions with a multiplication problem. So the first thing we need to do in example 1, if you look, our numerator in the first fraction is not written in the correct order. So I'm going to rewrite this in descending order. And then we're going to start thinking about factoring again. So it's pretty much the same steps. We always want to factor first. I'm going to make a couple notes as we're going along. GCF first. So in this numerator, I can factor out a -1. So it changes the signs. In this numerator, my GCF is 2. So I'm going to factor that out. In the denominator, in the second fraction, we have a GCF of 4. And then we're going to ask ourselves, can I factor in the parentheses any further? We can do AC here for this numerator. So if I come over to the side, I need factors of -6. That will give me +1. So that's going to be -2, +3. We can do our shortcut here. So I'm going to put -1 and then x minus 2, x plus 3 over that x minus 5. We have a difference of squares here. So we'll have 2 times x plus 5, x minus 5. And then we can do AC. So I'm going to put AC here. And we can do AC here. So again, I'm going to come over and do 1 times 3. And I need factors of 4. So that would be 1 times 3 will give me 3. 1 plus 3 gives me 4. Again, we can use the shortcut because A is 1. So x plus 1, x plus 3. So once you get everything factored out, it's a good idea at this point to go ahead and think about restrictions. So I'm just going to come down here and say, okay, x cannot equal. If you think about what would make this denominator a 0, if I put 5 here, that would make this a 0. So it cannot be 5. We don't care about the 4 because there's no x with the 4. Here, if I put -1, -1 plus 1 would be 0, so we can't have -1. And here, if I had -3, it would make the denominator 0. So there's our restrictions. And then we're going to cross out common factors. The difference between yesterday and today is that we can go across fractions, but it still has to divide to be 1, and it still goes in pairs. So this x plus 3 divided by this x plus 3 would give me 1. This x minus 5 divided by this x minus 5 would give me 1. And I think that's going to be everything. So we can then say, across the top we have -1. I'm just going to leave that as a negative now, times x minus 2. And then I have 2, so I'm going to put that out front here. And then I have an x plus 5. And then I have 4 times x plus 1. But then if we think about this, 2/4 is really 1/2. So I'm just going to leave this negative, x minus 2, x plus 5. And then the 4 will become a 2 times x plus 1. So that gives me my -1/2 when we simplify that. So that's how you would do example 1 with multiplication. Now let's do a division problem. So example 2 is division. We're still going to simplify and state the restrictions. But if you remember, when you divide fractions, we want to do keep, change, flip. Okay, so that means we're going to keep the first fraction the same. We're going to change our division to multiplication, and we'll flip our second fraction. So I would go ahead and do that step first before you forget to do it in the end. So one thing I do notice, I'm going to keep this first fraction the same, but I do notice this is not written in order. So when I bring this down, I'm going to change that to say negative x plus 2 over this denominator. We're going to change this to multiplication, and we're going to flip our second fraction. And then you're ready to start factoring and simplifying. Okay? Anytime there's a negative, you want to factor out the negative 1. So that's going to change the sign. There's a GCF of 2 on the bottom. So when I factor out this 2, I'm going to get x squared plus 2x plus 1. Over here, we also have a GCF. It's going to be 2x this time. So when I factor out the 2x, I'm going to get x squared minus 1. And then I can do AC with this problem. So 1 times negative 10 is 10, and we need factors to give us 3. So that will be negative 2, positive 5. So we're going to say x minus 2, x plus 5. I'm not quite finished yet because I can still do AC here, and then I have a difference of squares here. So we have negative 1 times x minus 2. Factors of 1 that give me 2 are going to be 1 and 1. Difference of squares becomes x plus 1, x minus 1. Okay, so at this point we would be ready to start canceling out common factors, but before we do that, we want to do our restrictions. Okay, so your restrictions are going to come from your original denominator, okay, and your new denominator. So if you think about this second fraction, my original denominator is now the numerator. So we're going to start with your first fraction, only looking at the denominator, so it could not be negative 1, and that could not be negative 1, but we've already written it, so that's taken care of. Here I could not have positive 2. Here I could not have negative 5. Then we need to go to the top, the numerator of your second fraction, because in this case that used to be the denominator. So if I say 2x cannot equal 0, then when you divided you would say, okay, x could not equal 0. Here would be negative 1. We've already got that. We also need positive 1. So here's our restrictions. And now we're ready to start crossing things out. So x minus 2 divided by x minus 2 is 1. X plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is 1. Remember, it's only a pair. I don't get to cancel both of these out. And this 2 divided by 2 is going to go away. And I think that's all we can do. So we're going to have negative 1 times x minus 1, or no, here's an x, sorry. So negative x times x minus 1 is left in your numerator. In your denominator, you're going to have x plus 1, x plus 5. And that would be your simplified form.